Just push play and tell your story. Hello, Paint Besties. It is Hadiyyah, the Paint Alchemist, and that was just the word that I heard from Holy Spirit. I've been sitting here in my car just like really battling how to tell a story, what story to tell. But I just push play and speak. But some of y'all, again, that is a message. Just push play and speak. Whatever comes out of your mouth, it will be the truth, especially if it's coming from the Most High God, especially if it's filled with love, right? And you know when something is filled with love because it doesn't feel like condemnation. And I told you all that in a previous video. So this is going to be a story of forgiveness and redemption. And it has nothing to do with anyone else. I want to give this disclaimer right now up front. This is about a journey of healing from deeply rooted pain, deeply rooted wounds, and journeying through forgiveness and to unconditional love. So I probably break this up in a couple sessions because it is a long one. I'm going to speak of marriage, I'm going to speak of divorce, and I'm going to speak of forgiveness. All in these videos. And again, y'all, keep in mind, I don't edit any of the videos. Hi, birds. I'm out in nature. I don't edit any of these videos. Everything is free, flowy. I show up as I am. I woke up like this. It's about what, 9 something in the morning, and those are the best times to really have a conversation with God. Those are the best times to be out in nature. Those are the best times to receive your divine messages, your instructions for your day. Always wake up with, set an intention for your day. Ask God what it is that you need to focus on for the day. And it's always a theme for me, whether it's, again, love, forgiveness, joy, peace, grounding yourself, releasing, past wounds, past hurts, past traumas, because I'm still in the process of that, y'all. Healing is a spiral journey. It definitely is definitely not linear, and you are constantly pulling back the onions of the layers and getting to the source, getting to the root of certain wounds. And I've been journeying for a long time, so with the journeying comes ascension, and there's always like a spiritual awakening after a period of just going inward. There's like this aha, okay, rise, right? And so it never stops. The journey of your becoming never stops. It keeps going. And I would encourage you to keep going, keep growing, beautiful butterfly. So my story is of, again, healing, is of great reflection, and it is of transparency. I'm going to speak of my marriage. So I am recently divorced. I got divorced last year in October. I said on one video it was October 10th, but it's actually the 14th, I believe. But 1010 is a powerful number of change. 10s in general means cycles are complete, cycles are over, cycles are closed. And so I don't believe that it was by coincidence that we got divorced in October, the 10th month, right? Completion, endings and new beginnings. But it was a painful one for me because I believe that my husband was my end all. He was my person. Like he was the one. He was the one. And how we met, he reached out to me online back in 2020, at the end of 2020, and he inboxed me. He was like, I'm not this creepy guy. I didn't know him. He was like, I'm not this creepy guy, but I am looking to connect with souls or other people that's on a spiritual journey. And back then in 2020, of course, I was heavy into teaching yoga. I was doing yoga in the parks. I was really heavy into just like doing all things as it relates to self-healing. I was working with chakras and all that, right? I was actually starting my journey of inner child healing around that time as well. And so I guess what he said was that he was looking to connect with like-minded spiritual beings, and that's what drew him to me. So I was at the time in the relationship. At the end of a relationship, I knew it was over. I had discussed with the person that I wanted to eventually get married, and the person I was with at the time was like, well, you know, when we first got together, we discussed we didn't want to get married again because I had been married before, and so has he. And we both was saying, yeah, we're good where we're at. But as time went on and I started to evolve, I noticed that I did want to get married, you know. And when I came to that person that I was with and told him that, he said, that's not my path. And then I said, okay, it's going to come a time where I'm not going to be here anymore, this little baby spider. And he said, okay, you got to do what you got to do. So we were still on the end of that relationship when I met my the person I thought was the one. Well, when he inboxed me, and you know, so we would be talking, we would be inboxing, and you know, sometimes we would be on the phone for like 5 hours. I mean, it was amazing. And I think we did that for like a month, where we were just going back and forth. He was in South Carolina, I was in New Jersey. Again, I was still in a still at the end of a relationship, and he was at the time said he was coming from a divorce, but we're gonna get to that. So you know, we were creating this soul connection solely through the phone. And then finally I flew out to South Carolina like a month and a half later. It was around the end of January, beginning of February of 2021. And we met at the bar of my hotel room. Beautiful hotel in Charleston, South Carolina. Beautiful upscale hotel. And we met at the bar. I was sitting there at the bar. He came in, and he had his glasses on. He had his mask on, because at the time, you guys remember, at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, COVID was still around, right? And ironic as it may be, a lot of people started their spiritual journey or their spiritual awakening in the year of 2020, and that's another topic for another video. But so we met. When we first saw each other, we locked eyes, and it was kind of scary because, you know, we was talking on the phone for about a month, but you know, you really don't know a person until you get around a person. And it might have been a little bit longer than a month, probably a little bit closer to 2 months. We had been talking on the phone before we connected. And no, because around my birthday is when we started talking. No, he reached out in October. Then he posted something else in December about a picture that I've taken. And then we met up the end of January. So since October. And yeah, so we instantly connected. It was like an instant. To me, it felt like love at first sight, right? And to him too, actually, because, you know, we discussed it later on. So we met. We had a joyous, joyful time. My time in South Carolina, the first time I was there for probably about 4 days, 3 nights. Then I flew back home to New Jersey. And then I met up with the person that I was with, and I said, listen, this is not going to work. You know, and I told him about, you know, the one. And he is like, well, you gotta do what you gotta do. And I was like, yeah. Because my heart was leading me to something different, and I knew what I wanted, and I knew what my soul was feeling, right? And I didn't want to play games with anyone. You know, I wanted to be transparent, and I wanted to be open and honest. And so I knew that we reached the end of the road of that connection. And so shortly after, I started flying back and forth to South Carolina. Every other weekend I was in South Carolina. And it wasn't always the hotel. It was at his property. His dad had owned like 3.2 acres of land. Some of y'all remember I used to post videos being in the country, in the low country of South Carolina. And it was beautiful and it was amazing. Every other weekend I was back and forth in South Carolina. Y'all remember around that time, I was collecting unemployment, okay? And y'all remember those pandemic checks, right? So on top of like the usual unemployment, I was getting like $600 or $1,000. I don't even know. Okay, we was getting it, y'all. We was definitely hood rich if you was on unemployment around the pandemic. So of course I was going back and forth to South Carolina, and I was falling more deeply in love with a person who I thought mirrored to me what I was looking for in another. You know, I was highly on a spiritual journey, and he was too. You know, so he say at the time, you know, he said that he had just come off out of church because he was a pastor, he was a bishop, and again he had just got divorced, so he stepped away from the church, and he was just like trying to find his center. He was trying to find himself, and I think that's what magnetized him to me, but I'm gonna speak on that later on, what probably magnetized him to me, because again he reached out to me, right, on social media. So we just having an amazing time. We are Airbnb, and we are creating the most beautiful music videos, right? Because he's actually a music artist as well. So it's just a lot. We was living a life of love and oneness, and it was beautiful, and it was the most amazing love story to me. And shortly after, probably about 5 months in, I find out that he had another woman pregnant. Okay, he had another woman pregnant. He's claimed that he told me about it, but I don't remember him telling me about it. But she was to have his baby soon, and that kind of hit me in the heart center, because I'm like, whoa, like, no, you're my person. Like, you're about to have a baby, and I want a baby with you eventually. So we weathered that storm, but there was always something lingering in the back of my mind when he would leave and say he would be going to his family house, who lived in like Georgia, when I felt that he was probably traveling to her because she was living in Jacksonville. So there was always that in the back of my mind. And then there was another instance where he met a woman online, and he told me that he was moving to Ohio to be with this woman so she could help him with his case, because he did 5 years in prison for crimes against a 3-year-old, if you guys can read between the lines. And so he said he always maintained his innocence. I've always believed him. And he said that this lady that he was moving with in Ohio was going to help him with his case. So we had a pregnant baby, the baby mama, a baby on the way, couple that with a lady, you know, who was going to help him with his case. He had to move to Ohio. This is all in the span of 8 months of me and him being together, that I'm finding these things out, right? Not even 8 months, probably a little bit earlier than that. And so he told me, you know, that it's always going to be me, and I can move to Ohio, and I could get a place out there, and he would be with the lady, and then basically I was going to be like the third party. Okay, he was going to be with the lady, and I was going to get an apartment, and he was going to come to me when he had time, or when he could get away. And I was like, something about that just didn't seem right to me. It just didn't seem right, and in my heart it wasn't the right, it just didn't feel right. So we ended up actually separating, and I went back home to Jersey, because at the time I was actually staying with him in South Carolina, in his dad's home. Well, his home, his dad left to him, for about 2 months, from like September to the end of November, because I went home right before Thanksgiving, and that was in 2021. So we actually separated. You know, he had to make his decision for his life. He wanted to clear his name. He said that she was helping him with the Innocence Project, and all you know, just some things that he said that she was helping him with, clearing his name. And so I was like, you gotta do what you have to do for you. And we separated. So We separated in November 2021. Again, in between, from the time we laid eyes on each other to November of 2021, it was a whirlwind. It was literally high highs and low lows. Like, we would argue. When we would argue, he would leave me at his house, and then he would leave. I remember one time he left for like 2 days, didn't come back. I was outside with our dog, because we had adopted a dog. We'd adopted a couple dogs while we was together in the beginning. And Daisy was the dog in particular that we took a liking to, because the dogs that we had before Daisy, we had for like a day or two, and we would bring them back. But Daisy, we had her for like a month. So me and Daisy sitting outside in the car, you know, sleeping in the car for a couple days, because he took off. We had an argument. He took off and left me at his home, but the door was locked and I couldn't get in. So he finally came back. Oh, I was furious. Explained to me that he needed to get away. He went to his family house in Georgia, and I don't know if I believed him. I think he probably was with his baby mother, but you know, it didn't matter at the time. I was just really upset. But we actually ended up, you know, mending that. I'm trying to paint a picture for y'all. So again, it was a whirlwind. It was ups and downs. Okay, we had another argument where he brought me to a hotel, and then after he dropped me off at the hotel, I had to catch a Uber to the airport, which was a far distance from the airport. And then he just cut his phone off. So it was like things like that. And I wasn't perfect. But I was in my process of becoming, even back then when I first met him. Very, very grounded. Very, very, you know, on my just wanting to be in peace and just doing the soul work. But I wasn't perfect. Of course, if it takes two to argue. So if we're arguing, of course, I'm arguing as well. But those are some of the things that I had to deal with. And again, this is not telling the story from a place of hurt. I've since forgave him, and I'm gonna get to like a lot. It's a lot, but I just want you all to get the backstory of why certain things played out the way that they played out, and why deep healing needed to be done in order for me to be here today, telling this story from a place of healing and not from a place of hurt. So when we separated in November of 2021. His intention was to go to Ohio. I was going back home. C'est la vie. If it's meant to be, we'll come back together. In January, we reconnected. I flew out to South Carolina. So I hadn't talked to him from November to January. In January of 2022, we reconnected. And I came back to South Carolina. Of course, my soul was calling for him. I felt so much hurt and pain of him leaving. And it just, I don't know, I just kept feeling my heartstring pulling. So we eventually reconnected in January of 2022. But then that was like the final like goodbye before he actually left for Ohio. Because from November to January, I think he was just in the process of leaving for Ohio. But in January, he actually left for Ohio. So that was kind of like our final goodbyes we were saying. So, didn't speak to him at all in 2022. With peeking on his social media pages, and I found out that he got married. He got married, and he was a pastor. He was pastoring a church. And while we were together, it was all crystals and magnetic soul and you know, more metaphysical, right? Because that's the journey that I was on. And that's the journey that I felt he was on when he reached out to me on my inbox. And he told me that he, you know, he was a pastor of a church. And he told me that he was a prophet. But I never saw him in that capacity when we first met. So to my surprise, when I saw him in Ohio with this woman, and he was married, and he was not only married, but he was pastoring a church. I'm like, well, what in the... So I did start to feel some type of way. I'm like, what? I thought you said you would just go in there to have this lady help you clear your name, but you went there and you set up house and you got married and now you are pastor in a church. Was that what it was the whole time? Was I being played? So of course I was hurt. Oh my gosh, I went through such an incredible, deep, dark night of the soul. I was depressed, I was angry, I was furious. I just was, and it probably was about 6 months I went through this. No one knew. I was living with my parents. My daughter was across the hall from me. She probably would hear me crying sometimes in the room. Sometimes I would disclose to her that I was doing inner child healing, and I was doing inner child healing. So coupled inner child healing with the person you thought was the one, him going off living his life with somebody else, and you're like, wow. And there's no one that I could speak to about this because it seemed crazy. Okay, it seemed crazy to be crying over a man that's moved on with another woman. And now when you're doing inner child healing and shadow work, what is that? That's some demonic stuff, is what people think or was thinking, right? So I couldn't talk to anyone but God. But God. So as fate would have it, he was going through some things with her, with the person, his partner that he was with in Ohio. And I was just living my life, dating here, dating there, being in my goddess energy. I was really doing the deep soul work, standing in my power. If it felt like it wasn't going anywhere, I would stop it in its tracks, a connection. And I was just living my life and shining my light in dark spaces. So something happened where we reconnected. Actually hopped on one of his conference calls, and because I told you I had been following his social media page, and I hopped on one of his conference calls and announced myself, and he started prophesying to me, and then I started singing one of our songs on the call. That was a hot mess, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie, because I was still feeling a type of way. Even though I was going through the healing process, I was still feeling a type of way. So I hopped on one of his conference calls, and I wanted to be made myself known, and I made myself known. Yes, I did. I did do that, because what you did was you played in my face. At the time, that's what I felt. And I need you to feel that. I need you to feel how I felt. So somehow after the conference call, maybe a month later, I get a message from him, or we link up. I forget how we linked up, on Messenger or on the phone, but we did. And he got to telling me, I'm in this marriage, but it's not a marriage. It's just for paper. It's just for the look of it. And basically saying he's not happy, and it was always supposed to be me, and I should have known that. I should have known his heart. And so somehow we reconnected. We met up in Virginia, y'all, and that was like in the end of May or the end of April of 2023. So we met up in Virginia. Virginia is for lovers. We met up in the tent. And when we first saw each other, for both of us, it was just like our hearts melted, and we held each other for like what it was like an hour. We just held each other, and I was crying, and I don't remember if he was crying, but he was very emotional. We were just holding each other, hugging each other, would not let each other go, because it had been, I told y'all, we separated in January of 2021. Right? January of 2021. And I didn't see him again until 2023. And in end of March, I think April, something like that. Springtime in Virginia. He came from Ohio. He drove. I came from New Jersey. I flew. And We stayed in a tent for 3 days, 4 nights, 4 days, 3 nights, and yeah. So at the time we was in the tent, he was telling me we was making plans to be together, you know, because of, you could imagine, in the woods, in the tent, in nature, we just both pouring our heart out to each other, saying how much we miss each other, that we could never connect with other people. Like, it was just really, really deep. And you know, at the time, his partner, who he said wasn't marriage, it was just, you know, for show, it wasn't a real marriage. I think she was in the hospital, or she had to go to the hospital while we was in Virginia. And he was expressing to me how, you know, she has some medical issues and how she was stealing from his church. And, you know, he was just through. You know, she was, I don't want to get too much into it because I'm not here to bash anyone. I really don't know what she experienced in her connection with him, so I'm not even going to go there. I don't know the young lady. So all I'm going by is what he was telling me. And so when he got back to Ohio and I got back to New Jersey, we were both preparing to come together. I was going to move to Ohio, and I did. I ended up moving to Ohio. I ended up finding us an apartment in June, and then moved in at the end of June, beginning of July. I moved in, and then he moved in shortly after, in October, with his son, his 20-year-old son that I didn't know. So I'm gonna pause it here, and no, God is telling me to continue on with the story. Okay. And I'll probably just post it in parts. So I moved to Ohio. I left my one daughter. At the time, she was in the 10th grade with my parents. I told them I was moving to Ohio. They said, leave Lyric here. I asked Lyric, did you want to move to Ohio? She said, hell no. Just like that. So my daughter was in the 10th grade at the time, and I moved to Ohio. And I went and I found us a place. And then, like I said, him and his son moved in October. They cleared everything that they did over with the partner that he was with, and yeah, we ended up moving together. Well, him and his son moved in, and we put him on a lease. And the first couple months, it was beautiful. He told me that his son will only be there for a couple months, not even a couple months. I think he said 60 days. Well, yeah. And after that, his son would be getting his own place. So, you know, it was beautiful the first couple months, and then it got tumultuous because I'm just like, you know, I want my husband. And I expressed to him that. I was like, I just want to be with my husband. I've been sharing you with everything and everyone since we met. It was the baby mama. It was the lady in Ohio. It was always, you know, and I felt like I had been sharing him. And not to even mention that he never had the divorce that he told me that he had. Okay, the first wife, like not the first wife, because I think she was the second or third wife, but he never had got divorced from her. He said he thought he was divorced from her, but he wasn't. So that was a whole nother layer on top of it. So by the time I moved to Ohio and we moved in, it was still this baggage, you know. And on top of that, he brought his son there, so it was still some remnants of some hurt and pain that I experienced. And when I look back on it, we should not have moved as fast as we did. Everything happens for a reason though. I'm a strong believer in that. But you know, he would tell me about his ex-wife and how she put guns to his head. Not the one from Ohio, but the one that lived in South Carolina. Put guns to his head, abused him. And it was a whole bunch of drama with the church and her being pregnant, and he had another woman pregnant. It was just a whole bunch of mess. And because I wanted the person, I looked beyond that. And he wasn't a bad guy. He's not. But he had a lot of wounding. And I know that today. And even back then, I'm going to tell y'all a story. I'm going to go back. But I had my own wounding that I was traveling through. My own inner child wounds, you know, that I'll bring up in another video. But, you know, when we got together, again, it was layer upon layer of stuff that had happened in the past that we really never addressed. It was like, oh, we're a happy family. Life is life. We're not going to address the past stuff. That stuff don't matter. We're just going to pick up like we never left off, and we're just going to move forward. This is my son. He's here. We're together. Happy family. And the thing that I have to say, that you know, it wasn't the issue really with the son. It was like what the son had done and was accused of. The son was accused of something similar to what he was accused of, and he did time for it. The son was accused of crimes against his 16-year-old sister, who ended up passing away. So, you know, I was uneasy about that. I'm not here to sugarcoat nothing, y'all. I was uneasy of having his son that was accused of this crime, and y'all know what I'm talking about, in my house, and me not even knowing who he is, but me trusting the person that I'm with, that he wouldn't put me in any type of predicament or position. But God has a strange way of working, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna get somewhere. So after a couple months of his son being there, I started speaking up, like, you know, when I'm gonna have you to myself. You said he was gonna be here for 60 days, and now it's 3 months, 4 months in. Oh, he's looking for a job. He got a job, and he's gonna save money and this and that. And then so around he did get a job. Now I'm gonna tell you one thing: his son worked. Okay, he did get a job, landed a job when we got there. Shortly after he got there, and he had been working. So I'm like, okay, if he's working, and he had been helping us with the rent though too. But you know, he should be sustaining himself, you know, enough to leave. And there have been a lot of arguments and blow-ups about that before the new year even kicked in. So around this time, I was telling him I didn't just want to be like a layup. I want to be the wife. I was a wife. Okay, I was a wife for 13 years before we got divorced. So, you know, I don't want to just be a shack up. I waited for you this whole time, and let's make this official. And so he did. We got married in February 2024, February 2nd, 2024. We had a beautiful ceremony. We had a minister marry us. Went to go get the marriage certificate and everything. Okay, so that was real. All right, because he said his marriage before me wasn't real. I'm not talking about the marriage before me. I'm talking about the marriage right before me, to the lady in Ohio. The marriage to the lady in South Carolina, he said he was divorced from when we first connected. He didn't end up getting a divorce until I think we was separated. He might have got the divorce right before he had a ceremony with the lady in Ohio. I don't know. That point in his life, I had no dealings or contact with him. So we got married in February of 2024, February 2nd. Mrs. Brown. You know, and it was just him and I and our officiant and God. And we wrote our own vows. We said our own vows, and it was beautiful. And like shortly after we got married, and we got back into a cycle of, okay, when is your son gonna leave? When, you know, and it was just, I don't think we ever could get off the ground, because it was just always another energy present. And at one time, I remember telling him, until you heal the relationship with your ex-wife, the one from South Carolina, you will never be able to love me in the way that I need you to love me, or that I deserve. Because I had healed a lot of the things from with my ex-husband, and I felt it was my duty to tell him that he needed to heal that with her. And so, because he had a lot of resentment for her, a lot of anger, a lot of pain. And whenever he would talk about her, it was always resentment, anger, pain. And you can't give me what I need fully as your wife if your heart is closed off from what somebody else did. And so I think we just never could get off the ground. We would have arguments after arguments. You know, it was just you know, I'm not going to tell the complete story because this is the gist of it, but a lot of things had transpired in our marriage, and a lot of it wasn't even because of us. It was because of third party entities, energies around us. And one time I had a dream. Holy Spirit showed me that him and his son was collaborating to do something, and I didn't know what that was when Holy Spirit showed it to me. But eventually what happened was we ended up moving out of the place we was in. We had been there for like a little over a year. We didn't really put anything in the home because we always had plans on moving off grid on land. And so we really didn't fill a home up with stuff. Plus I'm a minimalist. I don't really like a lot of things. And he appeared to be that way as well, although he was like a pastor, a bishop, and, you know, a man of God, prophet. You know, he had nice things. When we connected, he just was down to earth, just usual, you know. So when we got in our house, in our condo in Ohio, we just both just like, we don't need to put a lot of things in here. We got that card box love. We got that card box love, okay? We don't need much, just you and I. And so we ended up moving out of that place, and I was working for a company. I'm gonna get to the end of the story real quick. I was working for a company. We had a lot of arguments about him going to work because he was, you know, like on and off with ministering, doing a prophetic call or a morning prayer call, then not doing it. We were both in there drinking, turning up. His son, we was all in there drinking, turning up. You know, it's just, we was living life, wasn't really in our purpose, but just, you know, just like, I guess we was all just trying to, in our own way, just all individually healing from some stuff. And I knew that today, but back then it was just like tumultuous. So we ended up bringing that drama into another place. And we got into an argument. Literally after 2 weeks of being into our home, we got into an argument. And he the next day, him and his son left. They packed up their things and left. I thought it was going well. We got into an argument about me, about a car that my job that I was working at, the owner had lent us the money for a car, and he didn't know I was going to get the car like the next day. But we talked about me getting the car. He just didn't know I was going to go the next day. So when I came home with the car, he was upset. Rightfully so. But the next day, I go to the grocery store to get us some Sunday meal, you know, Sunday dinner, and I buy steaks, and I see these chairs on Marketplace because we had like we had an island in our kitchen, but we didn't have any seating in the kitchen. So I saw these bar stools on Marketplace. So I called the lady up. She was right down the street. They was only I think $7 for 3. Can't beat that. So I told her I would call my husband, and I called him up, and I said, I see these bar stools on Marketplace. The lady right down the street, you're doing it again. He started yelling at me immediately. You're doing it again without talking to me. Because we had the argument the day before about not talking to him about stuff and about the car. And y'all, it was 20 to 25 minutes. He hung up the phone. He was like, get the bar stools. He hung up the phone. By the time I got back to the house, him and his son was gone. Looked like they took most of what they could take, and they was gone. Now, the night before we had the argument, he was on the phone with someone and speaking in tongues, and I don't know what was going on, but it's like he kept following me when he was speaking in tongues, and I'm like, this don't seem right. So I was trying to close myself off, go downstairs, go wherever, just to get away from it. And the next morning we was talking in bed. We was literally talking about happiness, and he was like, do I make you happy? And I said, yeah, it's just a situation. You know, I just always wanted my husband, like. And then I went to the store. We was good. I went to the store, called him up about the chairs, bar stools. He got upset or whatever it appeared to be. Came back, they wasn't there. What it appeared to, y'all, what it appears, to be is that him and his son was plotting this whole time, and that's the vision that God gave me. That's the vision that God gave me, because there's no way that when I get back, y'all gone and took most of y'all stuff. We didn't have a lot of things, if you remember. We moved into the place that the new home, the four bedroom, two baths, with really nothing but our clothes. We were blessed enough to find stuff on Facebook Marketplace to furnish our home for free. A lot of it was free. And so, we didn't come in with much. So when they left, they left like little items behind, but I came back and I'm like, so I called them up to be like, well, where you at? And I think he answered the first time. It was like, I can't do this. I can't. It's too much. And then he hung up. And I tried to call him back. Straight to voicemail. So I'm in this 4 bedroom, 2 bath home by myself. All right. The next day, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to let him calm down. He coming back. Nothing the next day. Next day after that, nothing. And then I remember Miss Roxy was a lady that I would take to the grocery store every now and then. I would go pick her up. Late 70-year-old lady. And to get my mind off of things, I asked Miss Roxy, do you want to go to the store with me? The grocery store. Farmer's market. Yes, thank you. And she's like, sure. Oh man, I think the story is about to get good, and I'm probably about to move, because, well, it's already good but it's too much noise here. Y'all can see I'm sweating. It's hot. So Miss Roxy was like, sure. So I go pick Miss Roxy up. Miss Roxy is a God-fearing woman who loves the Lord. And when she come out the house at 70, she got her full armor of God on, okay? Miss Roxy has a hat on, a black hat. She got on a black sweatshirt. Now, mind you, it's not. It's when is it? April or May. She got on black sweatpants, a black sweatshirt, and a black hat, like she about to go to war, okay? But she said this is the full armor of God. So me and her, we went to the farmer's market, and I had told her what happened with my husband. I told her how he picked up and left. I told her about the arguments. I'm transparent. I don't leave out or omit no parts of who I am or what part I played. That's one thing about me. I'm going to say what part I played, and I'm going to be 100% authentic in what's going on. And that took a while for me to arrive at. That's my truth, because, that takes a lot of healing work to stand in your authenticity and in your truth. So Miss Roxy couldn't believe the story. She's like, oh my God, he just left you? They must be landscaping the park. I'm in a park. And I said, yeah. At the time, that's how I framed it. He left, but he didn't leave. God calls that. Okay? And that's another story. That's another video. But he didn't come back. I didn't speak to him for, let me go back. He had called me up 2 days after he left and left a message. I knew you was with that nigga. I knew it. I seen you. So I'm in the car with Miss Roxy, and Miss Roxy looking at me like, well, what's going on? Because I look like I just seen somebody, something happen. And she was like, well, what's going on with you? Why your face look like that? I said, my husband just said that I was in a car with another man. And she was like, who? I'm not no man. And I taped her saying that, and I sent it to him so he could see that it wasn't another man. She had a black hat on, all that type of stuff on. Maybe she looked like a man. And we we went to my house to drop off the sunflowers because we both had sunflowers, and I lived closest to the farmer's market, and I had to bring her home still. So we went to my house and dropped off the flowers, and I showed her around, and she was like, you should stay here if you can make it work. And I was like, Miss Rossi, I don't want to stay in this home. I don't feel right. I can't sleep at night. I feel like it's something attacking me, and I don't want to stay here. So he had called me up on Saturday and said that about me being with a man, but it was really Miss Roxy, and I sent him the video evidence. And on Monday, he went to file a divorce. Yep, on Monday, y'all, he went to file a divorce that Monday. And I hadn't spoke to him a month after that. We had not really spoken. It was some subliminal stuff said online, on Instagram, on both parties, my part, his part, because I was moving forward. I was like, okay, it is what it is. I've been down this road with him before several times, and you know, it is what it is. It's time to it's just time to let go. So I was starting the healing process. I was just like, you know what? It's over. I didn't know he filed a divorce though that Monday until I got the divorce papers in the mail, probably a week and a half, 2 weeks later. So I got the divorce papers in the mail. And I was like, okay, that's what it is. And 2 weeks after that, he reaches out to me and he said, I need to meet up with you because I can't talk on the phone, but I need to meet up with you. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? He sounded frazzled. He said, meet me at the park. So his son pulls up with him in the side in a passenger seat. He got the seat leaned back, and he comes scurry over to my car. I get in my car, and I'm like looking at him like, you okay? Now, I hadn't talked to him in a month, and I'm like, you okay? He was like, no, somebody following me. He was like, the Marines is following him, and I'm summing this all up, y'all. The Marines is following him. The FBI is following him. The Secret Service is following him. Okay. I had to call my uncle, who's a sergeant, a retired sergeant Marine, retired sergeant major in the Marine Force. Well, I got tongue tied. I had to call him up, put him on speakerphone, and say, Uncle, my husband thinks someone is following us. Because now it was him, but it became us when he got in my car. So my uncle was like, niece, listen, there's no Marines following y'all. The Marines don't have the time nor the resources to be following civilians. So he put my uncle on mute, and he was like, no, your uncle don't understand. It's not like a uniformed Marines. These are civilians, people who are retired. And I told my uncle, I said, no. He said, these are people that's retired. He was like, niece, the Marines don't have the time. He repeated it, the time nor the resources to follow what they want to be following you two for. They got a whole bunch of other stuff. So we hung up the phone, my uncle, and he was like, your uncle's not getting it. So, mind you, I haven't seen him in a month. So I don't know where his mental is, what's going on with him. I know before we left, he had been smoking marijuana. So I'm thinking, you know, maybe he's a little trippy off of that or whatever the case may be. I don't know. I hadn't seen him in a month. So I don't know where he was at, what he was doing, who he was doing it with. I don't know. So his son looking like, this is crazy. His son actually, I'm going to tell y'all, his son did express how he felt like Pop. He was like, Pop is tripping. So his sister, who's in Atlanta, Georgia, had contacted me and was like, I don't know what's going on with my brother, but he think that somebody is following him. And I'm like, I know. And he was like, listen, you gonna have to be the bad person in this story. Now, mind you, I haven't seen him in a month, y'all. This is my estranged husband. I haven't seen him in a month. His sister is calling me up. His son is telling me that he's tripping. And I gotta be the bad person and take him to the emergency room. And we all came up with a plan after he saw his parole officer, because he wanted to move to another state. He wanted to move to New York. So we went to go see his parole officer to try to start the process of him moving to upstate New York, where he got a sister that lived up there, and he wanted to move up there and get out of Ohio because everybody was following him. So we they keep coming everywhere I come. Somebody don't want this story to come out, but it's gonna come out. So we ended up meeting with his parole officer, his sister, and his son. His sister, his son said after we come from this parole officer office, we're gonna go to the hospital and tell him that he needs help, psychiatric help. So we get to the hospital. We following his son. His son is in the front, and me and him in the car, and he's still looking, make sure nobody following us, because that's how he was. He was so paranoid. So we get to the hospital, and we get out, and he was like, why are we at the hospital? His son was like, Dad, you need help, Dad, you need help. I've watching you for the past month, and you thinking people following you, and they're not following you. So I'm getting out the car, trying to step in between them two, and because he about to be my husband at the time, he balling up his fist, and I'm like, no, don't do it. He was like, you need help. And then his son called his aunt, his sister. And in the meantime, he looked at me like, you was a part of this? And I was like, yeah. I was like, we all concerned about you. Let's just go get checked out. Let's just go and get checked out. So he was mad at me too, but he ended up going with me into the hospital and being really mad at his son, talking about, you dead to me. So we go in the hospital, and he was like, I'm pissed. He was like, he looking at me like, you really believe that it's something going on with me? I'm like, listen, there's nobody following us. Okay, honey? Please talk to somebody. Maybe you just deprived. I know they had been sleeping in the car for a month. We all been sleeping in cars, because I left that house that I was in because I didn't want to be there, because I felt like at nighttime it was something going on, an unusual activity, and I just did not want to be there. My spirit told me to get out that house, so I started sleeping in my car. When they contacted me, I was going to work sleeping in my car, and so they had been sleeping in their car too. I'm in the hospital with him. The son is outside talking to the sister, and I go outside, talk to the son, and I said, listen, I'm gonna be with him, and you just take care of this with your aunt. So we sees the doctor. The nursing staff comes in first, asks some questions, then the PA comes in, then the doctor comes in, and at the end he was like, I don't know what's going on. These people the one that's crazy. My wife is crazy. My son is crazy. They think my sister crazy. They all think something going on with me. I ain't the crazy one. I said, tell these people how you saying that people are following you. He said, I ain't say that. When did I say that? I said, okay, this is the game we playing. Okay, I ain't even gonna argue with him back and forth in front of these people. This is the game he want to play. Okay. All right. So we ended up leaving. Nothing happened. Okay. We ended up leaving the spot. We ended up leaving the hospital. Nothing happened. We get in the car. He upset. We go get a hotel room, because I told y'all we were sleeping in the car. But when me and him connected, we got a hotel room one night. And then the second night, we got a hotel room. And so he upset at his sister and at his son. Not at me. He a little upset with me, but not much. So he calling them up saying, oh, y'all dead to me. Don't talk to me. Then one time he called them up and was like, yeah, y'all, my wife is the only one that's here for me. Like, she's always been there for me. Y'all ain't want to see us together. And his mother was involved too as well with this. Like, it was a whole big thing, y'all. It was a whole big thing. So we in a, we goes to a hotel, right? And he goes out. When we pulling up, there's someone cooking out at the hotel, like they live there. And so when we go up the steps to our room, he's like, I'm gonna go back out and say, and go talk to these brothers or whatever, because they was cooking out. And when we came in, we had to say hello to them, and they was like, come back down here and eat. So he went back out there. So he came back like 15 minutes later, and he was like, babe, he was like, I'm about to call Falawe. That's his son. Oh, I said his name. I'm sorry. Oh, cat's out of the bag. That was probably meant for me to say. I don't know. So he called his son, and he was like, son, this is the last time you hear from me. Remember, I love you. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, what's going on? And he was like, yeah, I went downstairs and I took a shot with the brother downstairs, and I think he put something. Okay, they're leaving, and I think it was something in the drink. So he all on the floor praying to God, and he tossed his phone on the bed, and something told me to check that phone. While he on the floor doing whatever it is doing that he's doing, I don't know if he thinking he about to die. Well, yeah, he obviously did that, but he was praying, he was thinking he's dying, he was telling God he gonna stop. Okay, I'm gonna stop drinking, stop smoking. I'm in his phone, and I see he is contacting several women, and it's on some sensual nature, sexual nature for some of them. One in particular, his ex-wife, he had been talking to her the whole time in our previous home. And when I told him to reach out to her, he did reach out to her. And I knew that he had been talking to her because I would be around when he had been talking to her. And it'd be times he's like, well, you told me to reach out to her, right? You told me that I can't love you in the way until I heal with her. So that's what I'm doing. Because I would accuse him. I'm like, you want to get back with her. And he was like, no, that's your insecurities. This was before we moved into the 4-bedroom home in our condo. This is when he was saying this. So I looked at his phone, and he had been talking to her the whole time we was in the condo, and he had been trying to get back with that lady, and I knew it. And she was flirty with him. If you watching this, I saw you. I saw your messages initially. You was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I believe, God brings things back together, and you both were going back and forth, but eventually you told him at the end, y'all need to keep it on your son. So I did see that part where you told him at the end, y'all need to focus on your son. I don't know what happened, what transpired. I just saw a lot of hurtful messages because he was talking about me. He was talking about my mother. He was talking about my daughter. He was saying how my mother had an addiction and how my daughter was this and that, spoiled, whatever the case may be. And I got inner child wounds and stuff. Like he had been kicking my back into his ex-wife that I told him to heal from in order to love me better. And all along telling me that I was crazy. And all along calling me a demon. And all along gaslighting me. I wasn't perfect. I would curse him out. I would call him the devil. I would call him I would. Because that's not the man that I fell in love with. That's not the man that I had this soul connection with when we first met. But was it all an illusion, y'all? Was it an illusion? That's the point. Was it an illusion? Was this person who was supposedly a prophet, an apostle, and a bishop, a man of God, was he just using my hurt, my wounds, my trauma against me in order to siphon my energy? In order to, to gaslight me and to dim my light, because my light shines so bright and my heart is truly pure. I'm not perfect. Was this person really using me like the other women that he's been with? I really had to sit with that. I really had to reconcile with. I probably was just another woman on his checklist. I thought there was a soul connection. I thought we had a beautiful divine connection, but was it an illusion? Was it an illusion? These are all the things that was coming to my mind as I'm reading this. Literally, like real time, I'm reading this stuff, these messages. I'm reading. I'm like, how do I? All right, hold on, y'all. I'm reading these messages that he's sending to his ex-wife in the process of him and I being together in our first home and then moving into our second home. And like I said, him talking about my mother, my daughter, just seeing these things. And I'm like, my whole heart dropped. And as he's on the floor praying and stuff, I said, get up. Get up. He was like, what? I said, you lied to me. You lied. I see the messages between you and Tanya. You lied. And he was like, what are you talking about? I said, you was trying to get back with her and she turned you down. And he was like, oh baby, he was like, I just love you. He was like, I'm so sorry. He just fell down to his knees. I'm so sorry. I just love you. I'm sorry. Just forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. And I'm just like, no. I'm like, no. And then, he started kissing on me, and he was like, I'm giving up the drinking, I'm giving up the smoking, just please forgive me. I'm giving it all up. I'm giving it all up. And I was like, okay. He started taking my clothes off. I was like, okay. I was pissed off, but I was like, all right, you know what? Hurt people. And at that point, I really start to feel bad for him. And I was like, okay, everybody's not beyond redemption, So I'm not gonna say I forgave him. I'm gonna say that for that night, it was okay. It was okay for me. It wasn't, I'm not gonna leave the hotel. I'm not gonna leave you. Because at first I was gonna leave him in that hotel room. And his son was gonna have to come get him. But I didn't. But the next day, as I'm driving, I feel this shift in me. I'm driving him to his son's job to pick up his son's car because he was door dashing while his son was at work. And I was like, something came over me and said, no, you can't go back to the healing work you did a month before you and him reconnected. Like all this chaos and drama that is in his life right now with the women that I don't know if he slept with these women in Cleveland. I don't know. I saw sexual stuff in nature and them being together and coming together, meeting up at clubs. And I saw like the messages from his ex-wife, and although I think she turned him down in the end, I don't know if they reconnected. I don't know if he went out there and they reconnected. They do have a son together. And I don't know what he's told her about me. I know sometimes she would be on the phone with our arguments, and even actually a couple times he on the phone with her while we arguing. And I'm like, how is that? I'm just thinking about it now. This is our home. This is our marriage. And I'm the one who told you to reach out to her. And you turned it back on me and gaslight me, saying it's insecurity. So it just, all of it was just washing, coming back to me, the healing work I've done in a month, and the power that I felt that I was in. And I said, I can't do this to him. Before I dropped him off, I said, I can't do this. I can't go back to that broken little girl who only wanted to be loved, who only wanted her husband, because she had an abandonment wound so deep that she didn't heal from, because I was in relationship after relationship after relationship. And when I started my inner child healing journey, I still was in a relationship. And so I never had a chance to really sit with my wounds and to process them. And because I wanted so much to be in this relationship with you, I lowered my self-worth or didn't raise it to be with you. I cannot go back to that woman that I'm working so hard to overcome, because I have a daughter that's watching me. And so I told him, I can't do this. And he got out the car, and that was in July. Or was it August? It was one of the two. It was August or July. And I said, I'll see you in court on 9/9. Because September the 9th was our first court date for the divorce. And I told him that when I got out the car, I'll see you on 9/9. He had filed, but in the midst of the time we was together, like when he came back after the month of being gone, he said he was gonna rescind the divorce papers. And then that happened when I seen the messages to his ex-wife, and I just felt convicted I just felt in my spirit this wasn't right. I wasn't getting the full story. I felt like I've been spiritually manipulated by him. I'm not gonna lie. I've been gaslit. I've been spiritually pimped. Right? Maybe this was just what this whole thing was about. Using your spiritual gifts that he has to go after women that have a low self-esteem, that got daddy issues, mommy issues, right? That don't know their power, don't know their worth. I see in you what you don't see in yourself. Maybe that's the line you use to really draw in those really pure-hearted individuals. Because I don't know your ex-wife, if you're listening. I don't know Tanya. I don't know Shay, the one you said it wasn't a real marriage. I don't know her. I know what you told me, and they don't know me. But I'm sure you've told them some things about me that was not pleasurable. But they don't know me, and I don't know them. And I don't know the wife that you had when you was younger. And the other one you was married to. I think you have 4 or 5 wives. And you're married again. He's married again, y'all. So he ended up getting a divorce. That was the last time I saw him. I said, see you on 9/9. And I saw him at a storage unit, because we had side-by-side storage units. Because he thought someone was entering his storage unit, he got a storage unit next to mine. He moved all his things, or I helped him move all his things to a storage unit next to mine. And so we arrived at the storage unit at the same time, like after I told him I'll see you on 9/9. And we didn't say anything to each other. And that was the last time I saw him. I actually was led to leave Ohio because I felt that it was dangerous for me to be in Ohio. I don't know what you was doing, the month we wasn't together, who was following you, what, but Holy Spirit told me to leave. So I abruptly left Ohio, and I came to where my daughter was at. And no one probably really knew what all that led me there, but now you know. And so on 9/9, when we got on the call, I was in the park in nature, and I felt my soul at peace because I knew we was about to get a divorce. And then the judge asked us both, is it beyond repair? Do you have kids together? No. You have property together? No. Now, mind you, I hadn't seen him since the storage unit in July. And then we got on the phone on 9/9. I hadn't talked to him. The judge said, okay, I'm going to schedule a divorce date for y'all on 10/14. And now it's 2025. And so on 10/14, he was present. He was present at 9/9 in the courtroom. I had contacted the court before 9/9 and said, I'm in another state. I'm not coming back to Ohio. Can I do a Zoom call? And they said yes. So I was on Zoom. I had a feeling, had I showed up, he was going to say, oh, let's not do this. Let's not go through with this. I had a strong feeling in my soul. But I knew I wanted to be divorced. Yeah, you filed first. But that needed to happen anyway. Because I think it was an illusion. And you met me in my womb, and I met you in yours. But see, the difference is I was willing to say, I have this, ouch, I have these wounds, and I was willing to be transparent with you and let you see me, let you bear my soul. Like you said, when we was in a hotel, in an Airbnb one time, get naked, I want to see you. No, step back, I want to see you. I want to see your soul. See, you had a way, but not just words, but a way with the spiritual aspect of things. And those are really dangerous people, my loves. When someone knows that they are gifted in the area and they call themselves a prophet, a bishop, apostle, and I'm saying that he's not these things, but when you operating in your low self, when you these things and you using them for manipulation, that's not God. And so 10/14 is when we had our second court date. He was on video that time though. because the judge said, y'all could either show up in person or y'all could do the video. So 9/9, he didn't see me in court. He didn't know where he didn't know where I was at. I had been long gone. And then on 10/14, we both showed up on the video chat, and we got a divorce on 10/14. And I'm not gonna say that it didn't hurt. I'm not gonna say that I didn't love this man so deep, but everything happens for a reason, and everyone is our mirror. And I had to really reflect on what was it that this person was teaching me about me. And what I reconciled with is that he was teaching me self-love, self-worth. He was teaching me that my pain doesn't have to be my story. And he also taught me how to stand in my spiritual authority. Because when you have been someone like me who has been through so much hurt and pain and wounding, and you could still get on these videos and share with your authentic self and your truth and smile and still have joy and love in your heart, that is the real spiritual authority. Not the costume that you put on, not the clothes you adorn yourself in and say you a prophet or a man of God or you're an apostle or woman of God. It's not those things. It's people, everyday people like me and you, that been through the mud of adversity and still make a decision and a choice to rise. I'm not a victim, and he's not the villain in my story. This is not what this is about. This is about self-responsibility and self-accountability. Because where was I when you met me? Oh, I was in a relationship. Oh, I had not healed any wounding. Okay? Where was I spiritually and mentally when you met me? So this is about Hadiyyah having to go inward and teaching people how to truly treat me. And standing back in my power and not dimming my light. Not dimming my light because someone else wants to use it as their energy and fuel. What he was doing when he wasn't practicing or ministering is he was creating music, AI music, online. His channel was called Magnetic Soul. He would make these songs that are more spiritual in nature, less religious, and then he had a gospel channel as well, and he was very good at it. Is very good at it. But you're using my light and keeping me small so you can rise. Didn't want me to go out really. Excuse me. Didn't really want to go out with me. You wanted to keep me tucked away. And it's not you. It's the spirit that's operating through you. Or that was operating through you. Don't know where you are right now in your life. If you're watching this, I forgive you. I love you. You led me back to God. The unconditional love of God. I feel it everywhere. I feel it in my soul. I'm able to get on here now and be authentic. So I have no ill will towards you. I have no ill will towards your exes, towards your family, because they only know the stuff you was feeding them. When I met them, they told you I'm sweetheart, I'm this, I'm that. What changed? What changed was the stuff you was feeding them. What changed is a hurt little girl that just wanted her husband. And you couldn't see me because you thought you came to teach me. And maybe, just maybe, Damien, I came to teach you something too. Maybe you didn't have all the answers as a prophet and a man of God. Maybe I came as your catalyst to help you to heal from your marriage that you said you was abused in. From your mom, your mother wound, who you said wasn't there for you when you got locked up. From your sister wound, who you didn't have a close relationship with, who lived with her grandmother in Alabama. Maybe I was there to help you to overcome the traumas of your past and to help you turn your pain into power. Maybe that was what I was there for. Maybe you was a student and I was a teacher. So we got divorced on 10/14, and it appears, because I've been on his social media page since, because he goes into these, he hides and then he comes back, and I get it, because I had to go into hermit mode and come back, rise like the phoenix. And it appears that he's married again. But you can't run. Actually, you could run, but you can't hide. You can't hide from your soul. You can't mask your wounds, your wounded inner boy, in another being, in a costume disguised as your purpose, as your mission, as your assignment. Because now it looks like he's back as an apostle, as a bishop, and that's cool. If you want to self-ordain yourself as those things, that's cool. I'm not saying that God didn't give you a purpose. I'm not saying God didn't give you a vision. And I'm not even saying today that you're not a change, that you repented, that you don't have a clean heart. I'm not saying that. I don't know that. I feel it. I actually feel it. I feel that you were deeply sorry for everything that happened in our marriage. And I think you think things could be different. I think you wish things could be different. And who knows what God has in store. But what I want to say to you is that until you give pain a place to land, you're going to always be chasing a version of you that looks good on the outside but doesn't feel good on the inside. And my hope for you, my wish, is that you rise in your power through integrity. That you become the sovereign king that you are through operating from your high self, not your low self. You need a divine queen that's not afraid of your authority, that's not wounded in her inner child, that can see you, all the versions of you. Because I don't know if people know you smoke weed, you drink. I don't know if they knew that. I mean, you would breeze over some of the things sometimes, but I don't know how deep they knew you was into it. Playing video games, and that's you. Those are your shadows, but that's what makes you you. That's what makes you your authentic self. And when you're able to really tell your story from a place of fullness and wholeness, that is your spiritual authority. That is your power. Not omitting parts of your story, not omitting parts of you because it makes you look good. That's not authenticity. And that's a faulty foundation that's not going to last. You have great power. You have great wisdom. But it's how you use people, it's how you use it that weakens it. And your spiritual team is watching. God knows all things. So you can fool people, but you can't fool God. So a couple days ago, I took a really, really powerful forgiveness journey. And it led me back to God, into unconditional love. And God said, tell your story, but don't tell it from a hurt place. See, I couldn't tell this story months ago when I wanted to. I had to listen to the Holy Spirit say no. Because you're still hurting. You're still wounded. Because what happened was when I saw you got married again, when I saw he got married again, I don't know how I started speaking to him. God has a strange way of of bringing stuff full circle. Because the shift of me speaking to my audience, to me just speaking to him, is powerful. It's powerful. But when I was going to tell my story, God said, no, you're still hurting. Because when you saw him married again, that triggered something within you. That triggered a bird. That triggered a wound, another layer of inadequacy. But God said you wasn't inadequate. See, what he does has nothing to do with you. Beautiful souls, what someone else does in their journey, on their path, even if you're connected to them, has nothing to do with you personally. It's all spiritual. Everyone's soul is looking to evolve in the best way that they know how. And some know how to put on a mask and just exist, is what I'm hearing. And some know how to remove the mask and live in authenticity, share their truth, share their story. So I couldn't tell that story from a hurt place. No, you guys had to meet me in my healing. So this is what this channel is all about, healing in real time. I got divorced in last year, 2025, and I just traveled through a deep forgiveness, pretty much a ceremony a couple days ago, and here I am, ascended in my healing, moving through pain, erupting through the dirt, the mud, and blooming. I guess that's why I got this dress on today. The flowers blooming where I'm planted. I don't know where the road is going to lead me, but I know one thing: I'm back, standing in my authority, standing in my sovereignty. And I will never go back to the wounded little girl I was 2 years ago, a year ago, a couple months ago. Because pain has landed, and pain is being alchemized into my greatest purpose. Damien Brown, if you're watching, I love you. I love you more today than I did yesterday, because I told you this. I always told you this. You helped me to see me. You will always be the catalyst to my healing. And all the other beings that wish me harm and ill and evil, may what you send my way be directed back to you. Because you don't know who I am in God. And I prayed for you. I pray that whatever you sent to me be returned back to source, healed, transmuted, and blessed. But guess what? You continue to attack me. But you're not attacking me. You're not attacking me. You're attacking my spiritual team. You attacking the Most High God, because I'm his vessel. And when you send attacks my way, I'm getting chills. Ooh. I just transmuted and alchemized those attacks into the next dimension of me and God and the light. I am not who you say I am. I'm who God says I am. So you can call me a witch. You can call me whatever it is. But what you see in me exists in you. So maybe you're the witch or the warlock. I will continue to rise in my purpose in God. I will continue to transmute pain into purpose and power. I will continue to speak with authority. I will continue to call judgment on my enemies, known and unknown, in spirit and flesh, across all dimensions, timelines, and realms. It's hot out here, y'all. I was looking to see if I had any more things to share, but I don't think I do. So if you are watching Let Love Lead, heal, go through what it is you're going through. Know that there are spiritual vampires out there. Know that there are, people who are preying on your unhealed self. People who want you to stay in that low vibration. People who want you to be dependent upon them as your master, as your prophet, as your bishop, as your pastor. People who want to, want you to outsource your healing. They don't want you to know your power and your sovereignty. Not saying that there's no good pastors, bishops, and apostles and preachers and stuff out there. I'm not saying that. But you have to travel through your wounds so you can have the spiritual maturity and authority and discernment to see people for who they are. If people meet you in your wounding, they're going to play on that because you're going to allow it. See, it's all about allowing. So it's not even about what they did, what he did, what she did. It's about what are you allowing? What haven't you addressed? What haven't you healed? And so if you need assistance with healing those wounds so that you don't attract a spiritual manipulator, so that you don't attract someone who tries to siphon your energy, your divine light, and your essence, reach out to me, DM me, email the Pain Alchemist Hadiyyah at gmail.com. The Pain Alchemist Hadiyyah at gmail.com. If you need one-on-one guidance, you need one-on-one healing, you need to clear generational patterns and wounding, you need to clear addictions, traumas, past hurt, past pain. You're ready to release. You're ready to forgive those who've done you wrong. You're ready to get back to love. You're ready to stand in your sovereignty and your freedom. You're ready to be who God has called you to be. You're ready to walk in your purpose as a vessel of God. You're ready to shine your light in those dark places because the world needs your light. All right? Darkness does not overcome light. Ever. I don't care how good it looks, how good your life feels like it's going. Oh, one thing about karma, she spins the block. And when she spins the block, you're going to feel a presence. And I ain't got to cast no spells. I ain't got to do none of that witchery, witchcraft stuff that you think I do. I move with God, love, and light. And light always overpowers darkness. Always. All right, beautiful souls. So reach out to me. I love you all. There's absolutely nothing you could do about it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me share. I love you. Whew. Thank you. All right, y'all. Let's do this. Let's journey on. Let's bloom. Peace.